Thank you everyone for joining the Rocky Mountain Tableau user group meet. This is the first data summit for 2021, and thanks for taking time. And it has been a great, challenging past 1 year. It's pretty much around the same time with what we don't know, and we, uh, like quickly the entire world became ups and down, and not knowing what we were getting um, into the actually what exactly the pandemic means. So quickly we everybody got into home isolation. Even if you remember, we like I was going through, okay man, so you have even bringing everything, vegetables, are bringing stuff from using DoorDash. You have a cleaning station with two tables, like one you bring it in and the other one is you clean and put it in aside, and make sure like nothing comes in. Forget about virus, it's not even like uh, any fly is going to come in. So from there, uh, you started, like it started testing your how your abilities to regulate the emotions, like when home isolation, not able to meet the friends, not able to take the vacation, and it's just so much anxiety. And those I've been working with several agencies, and those who have been working with like CDPHE, public health, and unemployment, and you can see those numbers, the cases and fatalities and all these things were going up. And even unemployment, I remember what it used to be 200 or few hundred per day to 20,000, 30,000 per day. And wow, it is like mind uh, mind blowing. And then it's the reality. And from there, we in several months into it, he started getting loosened up a little bit. And then finally getting into this year, like, okay, vaccine came out, and efficacy rate. And then in a couple of weeks ago, we got our first dose of vaccine. Then my wife and I were like, we were emotional about it. Oh man, it's like, maybe we can just travel a little bit. And then you just started the second dose. Okay, let's make your summer plans. Then then suddenly, if you are from India or any other country, if you are first generation, you don't want to get calls in the middle of the night or late in the afternoon. It's just like you have back of your mind. It's just like, oh man, this there is a lot of anxiety. You don't want to hear that call. So finally, few days ago, I got call from my niece in India, and my brother-in-law passed away with COVID just within days. And my sister is in hospital with COVID, and India is worst hit with COVID now. And it's like now you hear, oh man, it's like you don't want to hear that news, but finally you end up seeing that, hearing it. And it is like, oh god, it's like it's such a tough thing. And then you just process it, and hopefully that's the reality. And hopefully you don't hear that kind of news. And world has changed. And in other countries, it's a global pandemic. And hopefully all these countries, they can handle it. But it's at the steep curve, right? So you know I want to take opportunity to salute all the frontline workers. And when you see and you go through with personal tragedy, what these frontline workers are doing. And all the salute to all the doctors, nurses, everybody, even grocery store employees. It's like you're putting yourself in front of this pandemic, and yourself at risk, and doing the service to humanity. And it's really commendable. And being in data analysis, I thought about it. I say, oh, man, you don't need to be in the public sector, but you are doing a great service to um, service with what you are doing with data driven decisions. And if you look at the entire data, it is like, you have to look at the number of cases, number of fatalities, and how the vaccine has developed, and vaccine has efficacy rate. So all these things, like, I feel like sometimes like we are frontline too. And you don't need to directly do it related to the pandemic data, but whatever you're doing, making your organizations data driven. And thank you very much for joining this data summit today. And I would like to kick off our Q1 summit. We have great keynote speaker, Mark Campbell from EVOTEK. And this is something very interesting for us, machine learning and AI. So he has great expertise with EVOTEK, and he drives insights from venture and startup communities to enable technical executives to identify, evaluate, and leverage emerging technologies. Mark frequently communicates on emerging technologies via presentations, webinars, articles, and podcasts. So he held several leadership roles at Trace 3, Direct TV, HP, BA Systems, and he has Bachelor's of Science from Adams State in Colorado and Master of Science in Systems Engineering from Colorado Technical University. Please help me welcome Mark Campbell.
Thank you so much for a terrific introduction there, and a very poignant recap of the past year of adventures that we've all been through. Hopefully you'll find this topic to be kind of a diversion from today's maladies and threatening news, but we're going to dig into an area of artificial intelligence that is emerging right now as we speak. This past year, we've seen a lot of evolution in this space, and this is the idea of artificial intelligence transforming from consuming data. Think about like facial recognition, you take a video stream, and AI is now starting to produce the data. So we're going to dig into that. Brief little commercial here. I'm Mark Campbell, Chief Innovation Officer at EVOTEK. I run EVOTEK Labs. We focus on everything emerging tech and how to inject emerging technologies into our customer base. Our customer base is a good chunk of the global 1,000, and not just bring in some new shiny toy, but how do we integrate emerging technologies into the technology infrastructure that's already existing and enhance as opposed to replace. So that's what I do for a living. Let's dive into our topic today. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is this thing called a GAN. And for those of you who don't know what a GAN is a generative adversarial network. And the formal definition is this. So let's spend our whole half hour going through this formula. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But I do want to maybe take a lighter approach to that rather than the purely academic. So we're going to talk about a show called Silicon Valley. Have you guys seen this show? Amazing show out there. You'll remember an episode where they built an application called Hot Dog, Not Hot Dog. And all this application could do was look at a picture and determine whether it was a hot dog or not. Well, it turns out that's an example of a GAN. More particularly, it's half of a GAN called a discriminator. And what a discriminator does is you feed it in a picture and it makes, when it's untrained, a completely random guess. I think that's a hot dog. And so you say, yep, that's very good. And it learns a little bit. That reinforces what it assumes was a picture of a hot dog. Feed it another picture, maybe of something that isn't a hot dog. It guesses, yes, that's a hot dog. You say, no, that isn't. It learns a little bit about that. So you go ahead and keep repeating, it learns a little bit, and then every time you loop back and run through all the data you've been through before. So that's a 90 mile an hour dissertation on what a discriminator is. But after you've run through billions and billions of pictures into your discriminator, it'll actually get very good in our contrived example here of identifying hot dogs and not hot dogs. At this point, you can bring in another neural network called a generator. This neural network begins untrained, and you tell it, create a picture, which will be garbage at the beginning. And you say, nope, that's not a hot dog. And you give it some feedback through a method called backwards propagation. It can then make some modifications. You keep going through this process until you've actually start to arrive at a picture that looks like a hot dog. And now the generator knows how to generate one hot dog. You do this billions and billions of time until you can remove the discriminator and just have a generator that can make random pictures of all kinds of hot dogs. So not terribly useful, but that's exactly how the training goes on. Let's take a look at some more useful examples of this. So we're seeing examples not only in image and art and music, but we are seeing The Guardian, for instance, ran a complete article about a year ago, completely authored by AI. There are certain medical training facilities that are taking the hundreds of annotated MRI images that they have, and from that generating millions of other examples, also annotated. This is terrific in training medical staff. In the oil and gas industry, a lot of companies have seismic data from the 60s and 70s. However, there's a lot of error and noise that is in that. Artificial intelligence through GAN is now able to go back and generate data for the missing pieces, turning something like 90% of the unusable data that's been collected over the years into usable data without having to send a truck out into some farmer's field in Texas and exploding dynamite to get seismic echoing back. So let's actually take a look at some of these. I'm going to start off with music. Now, you guys may not be surprised that artificial intelligence is able to not just compose music, but also perform music. One of the expectations, though, is yes, but it's going to be that kind of EDM, trance, dance, house type music. It's going to be very repetitive and unemotional, very stilted. Well, I'm going to play a segment of AI-generated music, and you tell me. How many guys want to charge Winterfell Castle with me now, right? I mean, that was pretty emotional, right? That didn't sound like it was written by a discriminator and a generator and then performed on synthetic musical instruments. But I at least think that's a pretty impressive example out there. Let's look at another one. This is from our lab. This is a technology in the area of conversational AI. And we'll let the video speak for itself.
Hello, my name is Grace. I'm a virtual agent calling with Healthcare Now. Am I speaking with Michelle McCormick?
Yes, you are.
Thanks, Michelle. You are now eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine from Healthcare Now. Is this the best number to text our appointment scheduling link?
Yes, it is.
Great. You'll receive the link shortly. Do you have any questions I can answer about getting the COVID-19 vaccine?
Oh, this is awesome. Is there anything I need to bring with me prior to arriving?
Good question. Please bring a valid identification. Wear a mask and arrive 10 minutes before your appointment. More information can be found at healthcarenow.com. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Great. If you think of any other questions, please visit healthcarenow.com. We look forward to seeing you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
So this kind of links in with the topic Srini led with. Sometimes in our jobs, it's kind of difficult to make that direct connection between the work you do and what's going on in the real world. But this is an example of a gap that some of our healthcare companies found in the way they were dealing with customers. They would send out emails to say, hey, click here to schedule your vaccine. Some of you may in fact have received some of those emails. However, there's a significant segment of our society that is not online. So how exactly do you reach out to them? If you do the mathematics, it would take all of the call agents in the healthcare industry about 4 months to reach all of the people needing to be reached. With the technology we use, which from a company called GridSpace, that can be scaled up almost infinitely to whatever the bandwidth is of your telephone carrier, to where you can reach out and actually talk to these people via a virtual agent. That agent is conversant. It is not scripted. You can ask it, hey, what was the score in the Cleveland game? They may not know, but you can kind of take the conversation wherever you will. Let's look at another example here. And this is more in the realm of security, top of mind for everyone. We're going to start off a little bit scary here. So as you guys know, passwords are probably the weakest area in security. And there are a number of tools out there like John the Ripper and Hashcat that do a very good job at guessing passwords. So whether your systems have been breached or not, there's some statistics out there that say roughly 1 in 5 of the passwords of your systems can probably be guessed by these tools. Well, we now have a new one on the block called PassGAN. This is a GAN that doesn't just use dictionary attacks. It learns how people pick passwords. That if you live in Denver, the word Broncos may appear in your password at some location, as an example. So PassGAN, is it as good as John the Ripper and Hashcat? Actually, it's much, much better. Now, PassGAN can guess about 1/3 of the passwords on your system. When you put this together with a dictionary attack like John the Ripper and Hashcat, that number creeps up to about 40%. If you're a security person out there, this should scare the crap out of you. And there's a lot of these technologies being developed right now. You can imagine that the bad guys have definitely heard about this, are definitely using it, and probably have things that are better than PassGAN that haven't seen the light of day. Let's talk about synthetic malware. A white paper came out about 1.5 years ago, introduced this idea of something called MalGAN. MalGAN is a GAN with a discriminator and a generator that will produce malware. And you may ask yourself, why exactly would I want to produce malware if I was a good guy? Certainly, it's an obvious answer why you produce malware as a bad guy. As a good guy, though, one of the things that you can do is you can create millions of pieces of malware and test your perimeter to see how many get in past your current product that you bought to protect your perimeter from malware a couple of years ago that advertised that it could stop 99 point, pick a number of nines of the malware coming in. This is a way to test that. If you are savvy at all, you're probably thinking it'll be a cold day in Phoenix before I go ahead and unleash millions of pieces of malware at my perimeter. And so in fact, there are companies out there that are actually looking at safe methods for harnessing the power of MalGAN to do actual benign perimeter and penetration testing. Now, you may ask where that white paper came from. That white paper, I'm going to read it because I'll always get the name wrong. That came out of the Key Laboratory of Machine Perception and Department of Machine Intelligence, School of Electronics and Engineering and Computer Science, Peking University, Beijing. So this is what's coming out of China right now and is trying to be harnessed at least by a couple products out there like Packet to make, much like we are seeing in the COVID world, to make perimeters immune from MalGAN generated malware. So it's kind of an attack of the mutant malware. Okay, let's talk about synthetic people. This is from a site called MyHeritage. They have a product called Deep Nostalgia that will take a still picture and then extrapolate using a generator, a GAN, to go ahead and figure out what would this face look like if it was animated with blinking, smiling, head motion, and so forth. You can go to myheritage.com, do this yourself. bring up pictures of your ancestors or whatever the case is. I'm going to show you an example that I did. I just took a Wired magazine cover, and we just went ahead and ran that up there to see what it would do on a face that we're quite familiar with. So here's Elon Musk brought to life from a magazine cover, right? That's not too shabby. And for a piece of free software, that's quite good. You can imagine what commercial versions would be like. Wouldn't you, Elon? Okay, let's look at something maybe a little bit more on the light side. We're going to take a look at Jennifer Lawrence as played by Steve Buscemi. Or is it Steve Buscemi playing Jennifer Lawrence?
Expected Amy to win. So I just like, it was just, this was very truly surprising for me. Yeah, I was just really surprised.
Sheridan Watson from BuzzFeed right here.
Hi.
So you could probably be able to spot that that's a deep fake, but you can imagine that some of the deep fakes out there that aren't so ridiculous are a little bit hard to detect. Now, on the good guy side, there are some companies out there using the same sorts of techniques for actual solutions out there. This is a brilliant company out of Auckland, New Zealand called Soul Machines. Check them out on the internet. Amazing stuff. I'll show you their little intro here. So those are synthetic faces matched with synthetic voices like we heard on the COVID vaccine, that conversational AI side of things. So this is the combination of that. You can imagine you can train these to where you saw the use cases that they mentioned in the video. Brilliant company. If you've flown Air New Zealand recently, all of the in-flight tutorials that you normally get on the video are all being done by Soul Machine now. So pretty cool stuff. All right. Now, one of the things you may be thinking is, look, all this deepfake stuff is making me feel a little bit nervous, a little bit kind of skeptical of some of the things I might see on the internet or hear in the news. And I'm not going to get into the whole fake news hype cycle, but in the way that these synthetic artifacts are being produced by GANs, also lies the key to undoing them, because there is a discriminator involved. And remember, the discriminator is something trained on hot dog, not hot dog. That discriminator says there is a pattern the generators are using. Therefore, that pattern can be spotted. So after the fact, building a discriminator that can detect the patterns that GANs produce is a great way of unraveling that sweater. Today, this may not last forever, but today, detecting deepfakes is more advanced than creating deepfakes. Again, I don't know what technologies are going to hit the market 5 years from now that may change that arms race, but at least for right now, companies like Sensity and Microsoft has got a terrific product out there that can look at video and audio and start flagging the GAN-generated material in this. So there is a little bit of help on the horizon there. So hopefully that lets you sleep a little bit at night. But the key takeaways here is that synthetic data is very high quality. It's also very easy, and it's growing into just about every facet of the market right now. The baddies are using it today. We mentioned PassGAN, and without getting into any proprietary stuff, there are examples out there of GANs being used across the board. However, the countermeasure race is on, and right now I would say the good guys are a little bit in the lead. By the way, I'm talking about at the corporate setting. What your mother-in-law might believe off of the internet is a whole other topic, but at least for right now on the commercial side, there are some defenses out there that can be brought to play. I'm going to stop, take a breath, grab some water, and do we have any questions out there?
Thank you very much, Mark. And I would request anybody, if you have any questions, can you put it in the chat so that we can ask Mark. But it's amazing. Wow, man. This is like all the new technologies, and how to distinguish between fake and what is real and deep fake. It's just like, wow. It is a lot more to come. So, yep.
Well, let me inject a question. I'm often asked by our customers, okay, so what is next on the horizon? Where are things going to go after this? We've seen AI go from consuming data over into producing data. Let me give you an example. I've stopped sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see my face. But one of the things that AI is starting to be used for is, instead of finding something like music or video or what have you, and creating the data, what if you could delete the data? And I'm going to show you a real-time application right here. This is the easiest demo you're ever going to see. I'm going to clap my hands and speak, and a technology that I'm using called a synthetic microphone is going to take the clapping sound out, but leave my voice in, such that I should be able to talk and you won't be able to hear me clap my hands. By the way, it will also filter out babies crying, dogs barking, doorbells, and gunshots. I hope that isn't something you need quite often, but it will also filter out chickens if you happen to be talking to someone who's located on a farm, which, by the way, is a rather frequent occurrence in call centers that have been outsourced overseas. Believe it or not, we have a customer that's why they adopted the technology. But it also is a synthetic speaker, such that if you had dogs barking on your side, I wouldn't be able to hear it on my side. So there we go. How about that?
Great example. So we have a couple of questions, Mark. There is one from Lawrence Pierre. The first question from CDPHE. Do you want me to read it for you, or you want to read? How would someone go about playing around with GAN images? Is it expensive? Can I do it on my old Linux machine?
The short answer is yes, and I'll give you a terrific example. I took it out of my presentation. Well, I won't mention the customer's name, but there's a product out there called Descript. That's Descript. You can go out there and get a free demo for 30 days. What it will do is you can train it to your voice and then type in any text and it will read it out in your voice. If you're thinking ahead, this means you no longer have to attend status meetings. But you go out there, you can get a free demo of a terrific product. I presented to a large financial services company several weeks ago, and we were actually able to get 2 of their executives and train to their voices, and then type in, well, let's just say something they never actually really said. So that was kind of the jaw drop moment in that, but I had to remove it because these are real people out there. But anyway, that's a terrific technology that you can jump on. Go out there, download it, test. There are a number of other video GANs that you can use. There's one called Adversarial, another one called Reface, and you can go out there and play with those. But that Deep Nostalgia by MyHeritage, go out there, you can upload, I think, 10 free pictures and it'll animate them for you. So if you want to play around with that. As far as horsepower goes, I've done this on a Surface. So if you've got a Linux box with any hair on its chest, you should be able to use it there too.
Great. Thank you, Mark. The next question is Kevin Fraser. How will quantum computing advance these applications?
Well, quantum computing right now, Well, there's two sides to quantum right now. One is quantum key distribution for security. Let's set that aside. The other one is quantum computing. Quantum computing at present is, the world record is right about 110 qubits. There are some minor things that can be done with quantum computing today, but if we extrapolate that into the future, quantum computing is growing at 3 times Moore's law, so one can fill in any number they want of qubits and make a prediction as to when we'll hit it. One of the areas that's being looked at is that training. I talked about both the discriminator and the generator have to be trained with billions of images. There are several, I'll say prototype formulas right now because we don't have machines to test them on, that are looking at ways of instantly approaching getting convergence on the training of generators. Mainly because you already have a discriminator that is a trained network. Using that as a baseline for a generator, there is talk about quantum computing using that. So it'll definitely speed up the side of it on the generation side. At present, it's not known whether quantum techniques will be able to be used to speed up the discriminator, mainly because at some point you have to feed in billions of pictures. Excuse me, I have the hiccups, feed in billions of pictures. And quite frankly, that's not a job. High IO intensive jobs are not particularly well suited to quantum computing.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mark, one other comment, I think it's, AI would be nice to clean up data on the internet. Is it possible?
Well, there's a blurry line between cleanup and censorship, right? And so I think there is some cultural, technically, absolutely. You could go through and you could make flags on, hey, this is fake, or this segment is fake, or these pixels with this audio is fake. You certainly should be able to do that. I don't know of, we're privy, we work with 17 of the largest venture firms in the world, and we get to peek behind the curtain on the companies that are still in stealth mode, still in the R&D mode. At present, I'm not aware of any company building a product to be, let's say, like a browser plugin that would go through and highlight content that you're looking at and flagging it, whether it came out of a GAN or not. But one could expect that seems like something that all of us would want and use.
Yep. Definitely. And thank you very much for wonderful discussion and all the future technologies, and AI and machine learning is always exciting.
Let me just throw out there that if you guys have questions about AI or quantum or silicon photonics or using DNA for data storage on the way out there side, blast them over to labs@evotek.com. If you're using some emerging techs like AI for doing log optimization or AI for doing analytics or whatever, please reach out to us. Or if you're trying to figure out, hey, what is the latest and greatest thing in data visualization or whatever, we keep our pulse on just about all of enterprise IT. Notice I didn't say a price tag in any of this. We share the information that we have, and because we learn from the questions that are being asked of what the areas of interest are. So labs@evotek.com. Please feel free to reach out or follow me, Hype Sniper, on Twitter and LinkedIn. Boom, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Awesome. So we have our next speaker from Tableau, and he's going to talk about Tableau 2021.1 Einstein discovery in Tableau, quick LODs, and new unified notification experience. Rob Levin is principal solution engineer at Tableau, and he has been with Tableau from 2013 and has more than 20 years of experience selling enterprise software solutions, building strong client relationship during pre and post sales activities. And Rob has been helping broad range of enterprise systems and applications, and he's pretty good at sales methodologies and providing end-to-end system for end-to-end solutions. Please help me welcome Rob Levin.
Thank you, Srini. Thank you, everyone. And before I get started with my presentation, I'm just going to take a minute to go change all of my passwords. But Mark, thank you. That was really enlightening and certainly a lot of fun to watch. As Srini mentioned, my name is Rob Levine. I'm a solution engineer with the Tableau team based out of Denver. Excuse me. I've been with Tableau since April of 2013. So just hit my 8-year anniversary. And I'm thrilled today to be with you to go through all the innovation and features and functions that are included with the 2021.1 release. And if you're looking for some fun on a Friday, or more fun, I should say, a fun game over the next 30 minutes will be to count how many times I'm actually going to butcher 2021.1. My over-under is about 5, so we'll see how I do. There's obviously a lot within this release, so much that we're not going to be able to go through each of these one by one, but rest assured there's something in here for everyone. So whether it's AI-powered analytics, whether it's improvements to data connections that we have within our library, whether it's geospatial analysis or better notification, there is something in here for everyone. And we encourage you to go to tableau.com and just do a search for what's new. Excuse me. At the end of this, I'll be showing you a quick resource that you can actually keep track of all this. Not just for this version, but for every version as well. So rest assured, if you don't go there now, we can show you how to get there and always take a look at what new features are out there. But let's get started with AI-powered analytics. So we're all very excited about the new predictive functionality that we're bringing to the Tableau platform, mainly through Einstein Discovery. And so this tight integration is going to deliver powerful predictive insights directly to where people see and understand their data. And we're doing this integration really 3 different ways. The first is through a dashboard extension directly. So if you ever used an extension before where you just drag that component out to a dashboard, leverage that third-party extension, this is going to be the same process. The second is through our new analytics extension, which is basically a table calculation, and you'll see both of those momentarily. And then the third is by providing bulk scoring through Tableau Prep Builder, so that you can bring the predictions directly into your data set within Tableau Prep and then build everything from there. So that begs the question, what actually is Einstein Discovery? Well, it's a rich predictive analytics engine that's built on top of Salesforce that doesn't require any coding, doesn't require any scripting, or even any knowledge on how to build out a model. It's wizard-based, it's point and click. And what Einstein Discovery will do is it'll take your data, analyze it, build out a predictive model based on some of your input. And it also gives you various reasons for how it scored, leading contributors or leading factors, and also things that you can do to improve that score based on how that model is built. And so the first place that we're surfacing this is through that dashboard extension, like I mentioned. And this is available on Tableau Server, Tableau Online, and Tableau Desktop. And of course, it does require 2021.1. And because it's leveraging Einstein Discovery behind the scenes and the models that are built within that, it obviously does require an Einstein Discovery license. And we think this is a great opportunity to have a conversation with your account team just to see the power of what Einstein Discovery can provide. And so basically, like I mentioned, you're going to bring that extension directly into your dashboard, and in real time, it's going to score against that predictive model and give those insights back to you or the consumer of the dashboard. And so the second way that we're providing this is through the analytics service. And so in this case, it's obviously the Einstein Discovery Analytics Service. And simply put, as soon as you build that model within Einstein Discovery and deploy it, once you do that, you'll have the ability to grab a system-generated Tableau table calculation expression. So the syntax is already pre-written. You just copy and paste it from the browser where you go into Einstein Discovery, paste it into the Tableau application, and it's treated just like any other calculation at that point. So you can bring in other dimensions, you can bring in parameters, you can build additional calculations on top of that. You can do anything that you do with a calculation head if you just built it by hand, essentially. And what happens is in real time, we produce that predictive score right within the application, right within the flow of analysis. And just like the Einstein discovery extension, it does require 21.1. It does require that Einstein discovery license. And really the only delta here is that as of today, it's not available in Tableau Online. It is available in Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server. But the availability for online is going to come in 21.2. So probably around the July, August timeframe, I think is what we're looking for. Now, I mentioned earlier the Einstein Discovery Dashboard extension, but we wanted it to have a great place to land. And so we've re-envisioned the overall experience for extensions in Tableau Desktop. And so no longer do you have to go out to the gallery, download something that you find useful, store it on your local laptop, and then when you're ready to use it, do you have to search for that extension on your laptop locally? So that all goes away, and we're now giving you that experience directly within the product. So when you click on an extension, when you drag out that extension object into your dashboard, you'll see the full list of extensions that are available to you. You can quickly download those and use these extensions. And certainly we expect this list to continue to grow. And so this is a great way to bring your extensions more to the forefront of the building process. Shifting gears a little bit, we'll talk about Tableau Prep. So we're delivering on something that our users have asked for really ever since Tableau Prep was released back in, I think it was 2018. And that is to output directly to Excel. So historically, you'd have to, the most common way to achieve this, if you weren't going to script it, is to do that output to a CSV file, and then most likely go through that manual creation where you'd open up the CSV, save it as an XLS, and you've got what you needed. And so now that obviously goes away, and you can just do that output straight to Excel. Additionally, we're adding incremental refresh capability for the Salesforce data connector in Tableau Prep. And this is huge because as our customers are analyzing more and more Salesforce data, the ability to link on and incrementally trigger or refresh based off fields like the last modification date, that'll help limit or help reduce the amount of data that comes that comes in during that output refresh. And then moving on into the connectivity, we constantly, with every release, we always look to expand this list with the goal of parity between what's available in Tableau Desktop versus what's available in Tableau Server and online. Right now, we've added 4 additional resources for that browsing connectivity so that you can connect to Amazon Athena, Apache Drill, OData, and SharePoint lists from the browser directly without having to go through Tableau Desktop. And we'll continue to add resources every release, but we're certainly excited about these 4 in particular, based on the feedback that we've gotten from our customer base so far. Now, another key investment area that we've made is really on the Azure platform. So as more and more customers move to Azure, and more specifically use Azure AD as the authentication mechanism, the ability and really the necessity to connect through Azure AD to Azure SQL Database, Azure Data Lake Gen 2, Synapse, and Databricks is critical. And so with this release, we're giving you that new capability to have Azure AD directly involved as the authorization piece for these new connectors. If you are familiar with LODs, or if you're not, I'll quickly explain it. But I think it was about maybe version 10, give or take. I'm having trouble recalling that far back, but around then we introduced this concept of level of detail expressions, or commonly referred to as LOD calculations. And they're probably the most powerful calculation type that you can do within Tableau. A lot of power behind them, but there's some moving parts within the syntax. And so now, instead of having to figure out the exact syntax, the exact placement of either your field or the curly braces or the colon, that type of thing, Instead of having to be exact with that, the syntax can be generated for you simply by selecting a measure, using your control key or command key on Mac, and then selecting a dimension, and then right mouse clicking, you'll be able to create one on the fly. So we get you started, and then at that point you can add other dimensions or modify it in much the same way I talked about before. You can use it as just any other calculation that exists. And so this is a great new feature to get you out of the gate with LODs, and get you going fast, and we can get you started analyzing more complex questions in a faster manner. So let's take a quick look at the product here. So I'm going to go to, let's get our, where's our desktop here? All right, so here is our Tableau desktop, and I've just got kind of a standard standard dashboard here that's showing us shipping information. And this is showing us historical shipments, how long they're take, or what their ship method is, how long it was expected to ship. And what we'd like to do is leverage a predicted model that has been already built out within Einstein Discovery to determine, or to predict, I should say, whether delivery is going to make it there on time. So we've actually got kind of 2/3 of the final dashboard already built out. And what we would use is the extension, and I'll go ahead and bring that out. And so now what you're going to see is that new extension gallery that's native directly in Tableau Desktop, as opposed to having to go out and browse the gallery there. And we'll go ahead and specify that we want an Einstein Discovery extension. So I'll add it to the dashboard right there. There we go. Now what's happening on the other side here is, bring this over. It's actually asking me to authenticate to Salesforce so that I can grab the contents of that model. Hopefully I typed that correctly. And there we go. So we'll just say allow. So now that looks like it's taking effect. So now we should be able to go back to our Tableau desktop. That's interesting. Let's take a look at that. Where is our desktop? Bear with me here. Try this one more time. Go ahead and close that out. Oh, looks like my desktop closed. That's why. All right, let me open this back up one more time. Sorry about that little hiccup. Okay. This is opening or launching on my my other monitor, so bear with me one second. All right, let's try this with take two here. So I'll bring my extension over, and we'll browse for that that extension one more time. That should prompt me. There we go. Allow access. And there we go. We're in business. Sorry about that. All right, so now that that's there, we don't need it anymore. So now here's where it's going to start looking at the model details. We'll start with picking which model we actually want. And in this case, I'm going to choose this delivery performance, delivery on time. You'll notice here that we've actually got the ability to tie this into a specific worksheet, or actually into parameters themselves. In this case, what I'm going to do is use a worksheet. Now, what you see here is it's looking at all the different sheets that are on the dashboard itself. I have another one that's used for ED extension, and you notice that it's not in the list. So basically, I'm going to go back here and make sure that I have, this is really just a reference worksheet, if you will. And what I need is every single field in the model to be represented on the worksheet. Then I just need to make sure that that worksheet is somewhere on the dashboard itself. And I'm going to just make this floating just for the sake of a nice presentation layer. Oops, wrong button. I'm just going to make this a floating one. And then that way we'll kind of hide it somewhere that's a little bit less visible. Just one more time. Good enough. Now we can go in and configure that that Einstein discovery piece with the model. So let's go back and get that that model. Let's choose the appropriate sheet that has the reference information. And you'll notice now what's happening is it's looking at the worksheet itself, matching it up with the model to make sure that the fields match and are essentially joined, if you will, both from a data type perspective and the name. Now, of course, you can obviously modify this several ways, but once everything matches up correctly, and usually it's going to be named the same, there's not really much else to do here. So we'll go ahead and say next. And at this point, we'll just give it a quick name, and we'll say on-time delivery. I cannot type today. Prediction. And we'll just specify in the percentage. We'll say we want actually the top 4 predictors, and we don't need to worry about the warnings. And so now you're seeing how this will present the model in real time. So this may take just a second as it's going and fetching the data. And then once it does, it's fully interactive here with the workbook itself. So I'm looking at the historical data that shows up, obviously in this the other 2 sheets, and I see how that's reflected with my model score. So I see that if, for example, if we're looking at priority mail, it'll generate the model or run against the model and score it, and see that we're about 32% of the time it's going to predict that on-time delivery. It's also going to show me the suggestions on how to improve this. So if we say that for changing the service level of an individual record to Priority Mail Express, that would increase it by about 3%. So again, this is keeping the user in the flow of their analysis, not having to jump through screens. This is all done directly within by leveraging the model within the user interface. At that same time, let's show you what it looks like from the extension piece. So if we just go to Salesforce, and I will log in. Probably should have had this already queued up, so I apologize for the multiple logins there. But if we go directly into Einstein Discovery, which is what we're about to do, then that's where we can grab the actual table calculation expression. So we'll go into our Analytics Studio. We will go look at the model. And then once we find that one, let's see, it's the this one right here. If we go into the settings, now you'll see that there's a create table Tableau table calculation. It's already got the syntax built out, and all I have to do is copy it to the clipboard. Then if I go to my my Tableau workbook, I'll create a new calculated field, and I can paste that directly in. And then once I save that, that'll just show up in my tables or my column headers over here, so that I can use that. So a couple different ways you can access that model to bring it in for that seamless integration. So then the last thing that I'll showcase here in desktop before we switch over back to the presentation at least is the quick LODs. So let's open up just a simple workbook. And just to showcase what LODs are for anyone that's never seen them before, I'm going to do something that's very un-Tableau-like. And I'm going to build out a crosstab in just a minute. Now, what you see here is that at our highest level, we have category sales for furniture of 742,000. 719,000 for office supplies, and technology is 836. As we drill down, those numbers change because they're now calculated at a different level, at a lower level. Well, let's say that we wanted a second column of data over here to showcase that 742, 742, 742, 742, 719, 719, all the way through. That's where we get into the LOD expression. So I'm going to create that the old-fashioned way. And this is going to say that specifically at the category level, we want to calculate sum of sales. And then, of course, I've got to add my curly brackets so that Tableau can read that syntax properly. So all this is saying is we're going to run the query of sum of sales, but always apply it at the category level. That's what that fixed is. But again, you notice that syntax it can be somewhat cumbersome. You've got curly brackets on the front and back of that. You've got a fixed or an include or an exclude expression, colon in the right place, the category dimension in the right place. That can be a very cumbersome thing to build over time. So here, if we drag this out there, you notice that it's got that category level. So now what we've done is we've made it easier by simply saying, I'm going to hit control or click our measure, hit the control button on my keyboard while I hit category. And then now you'll see there's that create LOD expression, and it builds it for me with the syntax in place. So let's go back to our presentation. And this kind of transitioning over to Tableau Server and Tableau Online. This next one's one of my favorites personally, and mainly it's because I was about a year in at Tableau when I quote unquote discovered this capability in desktop. Whether you knew it or not, you can actually drag and drop column headers to rearrange the order. And so, you can do this to change how information is sorted, or more importantly, do a direct side-by-side comparison between two values. Well, now we're bringing this to Tableau Online and Tableau Server as well. And one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite features of this release is because it reminds me of how many cool things that are kind of hidden under the covers within Tableau, and that really even experts, quote unquote experts, aren't aware of all of them. And it's also a perfect example of the ease of use that people often associate with Tableau. And it's another example of our focus on trying to bring parity between Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server and Online. On the Ask Data front, there are two key enhancements that we looked at. One is, as people get up and running with Ask Data, they could use a little help. And so what we've got now is a pop-up guide for those data sets and those people getting started, so they can get to see the setup guide, they can look at usage analytics, they can actually get additional help or even provide any feedback. And in addition to that, we've listened to our customers, and as they've described the need and the desire for picking and choosing which fields feed into Ask Data, you can now go into the UI and deselect fields to remove them because they just are unnecessary for the purposes of Ask Data. And that ultimately provides that better user experience and certainly better performance. And let's face it, whether it's an extract or a live connection, oftentimes you have unnecessary data within your data sources, whether it be ID fields or even just redundant columns. But either way, this is a great opportunity to make a data source more effective and more efficient by providing that better usability for everyone. If you're like me, you get notifications all over the place: phone, email, laptop. I feel like I hear a buzz or a chime or see a pop-up about every 30 seconds or so now. And truthfully, our notification approach has been somewhat fragmented over the years. And now that goes away. We spent a lot of R&D time developing a brand new unified notifications area. And so you'll get the same notification experience, be it in the notification center. There's an action menu associated with each notification. And of course, if you have the permissions to do so, you can opt in or opt out via Tableau or via email or both. And we'll continue to invest in this area because but this is certainly a much needed refresh for notifications. A couple more, and then we'll get into the demo for for the browser interface. The next two are really about licensing, but certainly worth highlighting. So, and it kind of ties in line with how licensing has changed in the world of cloud computing and virtual machines. So we've introduced a new concept called authorized to run. And basically, this is a new service within the Tableau Services Manager. But if your Tableau server is internet accessible, you can use ATR to license the server. And as any non-persistent changes happen within your server, whether it be updating the infrastructure behind it, or making some small changes within that cloud architecture or the VM itself, you won't have to license and unlicense, and mainly you won't have to restart the server. And that's really the goal here. And so kind of a subsequent component to this is zero downtime licensing. As most customers have moved to subscription, the need to be able to apply additional licenses as you grow, or as your terms change or have new features that need to be added, that change needs to happen quickly, and it's a critical need. But rather than having to bring down the server just for a restart, now you'll be able to apply these changes within the UI so they happen immediately. And more importantly, you won't have to restart the server for that to take effect, which even in kind of the smallest terms can take about 10 to 15 minutes, and a lot of times even more. And then finally, we have metrics, which we first added to the product a few releases ago. I want to say it was 2019, it might have been 2020. But it was primarily geared for the mobile experience, but it's got a great place on Tableau Online and Tableau Server as well. And here through metrics, you can monitor and see in real time what changes are taking effect on your dashboards that you created a metric for. Well, one of the challenges when we first introduced it was when you created one, there was really no way of seeing what other metrics existed on that dashboard. And so a consequence of that is you might have redundant examples of metrics set up by multiple users. And so now we'll show you all that are tied to it with that relationship. And maybe you just want to reuse one that's already built or tweak one that's there. And if not, you can certainly create an additional one from that point. So let's take a look, and then I'll show you a couple resources, and then we will end with a quick note about the resources, and then Q&A. All right, so let's go to our Tableau server. There we go. All right, so in this case, I'm using Tableau Online, but again, everything you're about to see is available on Tableau server as well. So let's go to our, actually choose my site here, and I've got a couple favorites. There we go. And this first is going to be the drag and drop for the headers. So as this loads, you'll see that just like in Tableau Desktop, we can rearrange those very quickly and easily. So if we go into our edit mode here, all right, so here we've got our call center volumes by weekday. Let's just say we want to do a quick side-by-side comparison between Monday and Friday. Well, historically, you'd have to either build out a calculation or change the sort order to get that. Here now, with just that drag and drop of a header, you can do that side-by-side within the UI real quick. Moving on, and I know we're a little bit over time, so I'll try to get to this fairly quickly, but the next thing would be the notifications area. And so here, if you come in, you'll see the notifications icon on the top right-hand corner. And this is going to be a consolidated area for extract, refresh notifications, Tableau Prep flow notifications, as well as any comments that you've been tagged in, or anything that's been shared with you. So this is all accessible in much the same way that an inbox would be. And of course, you've got the actions menu to organize it a little bit more effectively. And then finally, we will go to, just go to this other site here. And we'll take a look at our measures, or excuse me, our metrics. I'm always going to mix those two up. All right, so if we go in here, let's favorites. There we go. So now I've got, when I go into my individual dashboard, as was there before, we've got the metrics panel, except now it actually will, instead of just creating one, it'll show us any that already exist. So of course we could go directly to that. All right, and then lastly, and then I'll open it up for questions, just want to showcase that a couple different pages that you might want to keep track of. If you go to tableau.com/products/new features, that will always take you to the latest version. And it's kind of like a microsite that actually shows you, not just from a release note standpoint, but it actually shows you each of the different features and provides, in some cases, links to blogs or additional resources, and also provides a good description of that particular function or feature, as well as supporting image if applicable. And then conversely, what we have is, well, we've always got the release notes, but anything that's forward-looking or coming up in the next beta, we usually update this about maybe a month or so after our latest GA. So this one is probably going to tell us that there's nothing they're working on just quite yet, or nothing that's ready to be released. But this is usually going to be a list of what's available or coming in the next release, which would be 2021.2, shortly at the end of June or July. And with that, I'll just open up for questions.
Thank you, Rob. It's always exciting to see all the new features that Tableau releases. And I've been working with Tableau from version 5, and it has become a great product. So, any questions for Rob? Please type your questions. Well, don't see it. Thanks again, and
Sure.
check out all the resources that you see it on the links that Rob mentioned. And there is one question from Benes. Is there a way to see what type of model is being used in Einstein discovery?
That's a great question. So let me go back into our Tableau desktop here, and you would be able to see that as we go into the extension details. So we would say configure, and then you'll actually see which extension it is. You'll just know it by the name. So here we'd have to go back. Let's back up a little bit. But the first thing, and I probably didn't make this very clear, but this is actually choosing from the list of models that have been built within Einstein Discovery. And so you could just use this as a reference to go back into the browser to see the details of the model.
Great, awesome, thank you. And I think there is one more question. Will the LOD calculation feature always give you fixed rather than any other LOD command?
That's a great question. So as of this release, that is the expected outcome. So it'll always apply the fixed as opposed to include exclude. And this is pure speculation on my part, but seeing that this is kind of the first release of that particular feature, I'm expecting that this will become a little bit more broad over time. So you will get to be able to choose your LOD expression, and then also even start to add in multiple dimensions. Right now it is just one dimension and one measure. So I imagine this will evolve quite a bit, but right now with this 21.1 release, it will always default to fixed. And then of course, you could always go into the actual editor and change that from fixed to include or exclude.
Cool. Great, thank you, Rob.
Certainly.
Well, I think, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all the Tableau support. Always, we are running a little bit behind, so I just want to rush it to the next one. So the next speaker You keep hearing about Snowflake, and the next one is about delivering real-time analytics with Snowflake and Tableau. And they have it's been a great partnership with Tableau and Snowflake. And Snowflake is multi-clustered shared data architecture was designed for the cloud and to handle large data volumes at blazing speed. So the speaker is Brock Cooper, senior systems engineer from Snowflake, and he's an experienced data engineer, data architect, and a business intelligence consultant. Brock has architected more than 100 business intelligence projects for companies in both private and public sector around the world. And he has been with Snowflake. And please help me welcome Brock.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us. We really appreciate you guys bringing us on, and we hope that we can at least teach you something a little bit about Snowflake and how it can interact really well and be a really great partner with Tableau. So just to give a little background about myself, I joined Snowflake in about August of last year. And my role is as a solutions engineer to kind of help with new customers and people looking to maybe evaluate Snowflake and see if it can benefit your organization. And my background is in data engineering, data warehousing, and business intelligence with some hands-on experience with Tableau. So before I joined Snowflake, I was a data warehouse architect at a fintech company here in Salt Lake, where I'm based out of. And I had the opportunity to actually go through and evaluate different data platforms and different data warehouses. And I chose Snowflake and implemented it as a data warehouse architect. And eventually we did get on Tableau as well. And we had over 300 to 400 employees using Tableau at once, running real-time reporting. I guess I should say within about 5-minute refreshes, and it handled it all concurrently. So I want to talk today about how you can get that happening within your organization. Obviously, the topic here is real-time analytics, and I want to kind of call that out and say that that's different for every single organization. It's kind of one of those buzz terms that means so many different things. It could be once every hour for certain organizations. It could be every second, and I'm sure there's a lot of business users out there that want data to arrive instantly, but they don't maybe understand the technical considerations with that. So when we're talking about real-time analytics, we're talking about whatever that means for your organization. It could be every 5 minutes like it was for me. It could be every hour, and even there's a lot of organizations out there where once a day is a huge improvement because they're loading data once a week. So they kind of get started off, and I kind of wanted to put the question out there just to get you thinking of, have you ever had a business user come up to you and tell you, hey, Tableau is running slow, which is something that is kind of one of those annoying things that probably happens to anyone in BI. I know it happened to me a ton. And the reality is that it's usually not Tableau's fault, and yet they're blaming it on it. So it's that underlying data store, that where your data is stored, where it's being processed, and that's what we're going to be talking about with this presentation is, what about the underlying data store? How can you get your analytics to process faster? How can you get a more seamless experience, maybe even live reporting with direct queries hitting your data platform without having to go and maybe make extracts and things like that. So, and just to get started and give you an introduction of who Snowflake is, my counterpart Blake Snyder is on the line as well. We work together in the Colorado and Rocky Mountain region, and it's not just us. It's not just us, with our dogs and in a garage running some servers. We're a real company. We have 3,000 employees worldwide. We're now a public company, which is maybe where you've heard some hype from Snowflake recently in the past year. but we do have 9 of the Fortune 10 companies and over 4,000 customers. And we are part of a really expanding ecosystem, including with Salesforce, a really strong partnership with Salesforce and Tableau with native connectors and things like that, and over 1,000 partners worldwide. And to discuss like what is Snowflake, I like to call it an all-encompassing data platform. So, your organization might have, a data warehouse. It might even be a cloud-based data warehouse. You might also have a data lake. You might have many different data marts, even a lot of different servers. You might even be hitting, APIs directly. So what I consider Snowflake is to kind of be that all-encompassing data platform. And that's really our vision. We want to make your data available to you as quick as possible so you can actually take action on your data and make decisions anytime with however many users you have. And so we've built this from the ground up, completely built on the cloud. It looks and feels, when you're using it, it looks and feels like a typical SQL data warehouse. But it's completely redesigned and built for the cloud to handle large-scale analytics. And it's completely delivered as a service, meaning you're not having to maintain servers, you're not having to worry about uptime or upgrades or patches and things like that. It's completely delivered to you as a service. So it's very minimal maintenance work that you have to do to maintain it. And when we're talking about what differentiates Snowflake from these other data platforms out there, such as, the different cloud-based data warehouses or having a data lake, it really comes down to our architecture and how we've actually designed Snowflake from the ground up. Snowflake is completely built on the cloud. And what that means is that we came in after the cloud providers were around. And then we saw the tools and products that they offered for anyone to go and build products. And so we're actually leveraging the products and tools from the cloud providers to go and deliver this platform. So you can deploy, and I should say, Snowflake is available on the 3 main cloud providers, Google Cloud, AWS, or Azure. But the experience that you have is seamless. It doesn't matter which one of those you choose. There is some benefits. If your organization is on AWS, then obviously it makes sense to do that because that's where your data is at. It's a little bit faster to move data between Snowflake and whatever cloud provider you're on. But it's all delivered to you in a seamless, agnostic environment. So whether you're on AWS or Azure, it's the same. It looks the same and feels the same. And Snowflake starts with the centralized storage. You may hear different sorts of buzzwords, separation of compute and storage. And what that really means is just historically, I'm sure maybe you've ran into it with the data platforms or databases that you're on. But you have to really, historically, you've had to really tightly couple storage and compute. That means you have to get one server that could handle every single workload that you threw at it, plus you had to handle all of the storage all in one box. Or, as the other cloud databases and data warehouses arrived, you maybe had to expand out nodes, but maybe those nodes had a little bit of storage and compute kind of combined. With Snowflake, it's completely different. For example, if you're on AWS or Azure, what we're actually doing when you load data into Snowflake, we're actually taking that data, encrypting it, partitioning it, optimizing it, compressing it, doing all the things that you should do to the data to make it, to optimize it. We're doing that to your data, and then we are storing it in S3 if you're on AWS, or we're storing it in Azure Blob Storage. So what that means is that you can store as much data as you want, but you don't really have to go through kind of the pains of maintaining an object-based data lake, as if you were to build out an S3 data lake yourself. You interact with it as a database, but we take your data and allow you to store as much data as possible. So me as a data warehouse architect, this was super important to me. I was part of a startup and I didn't know how much data we had, but we were also the fastest growing startup in our region. And so we were growing by literally hundreds and sometimes even thousands of customers a month. And we started off with a small amount of data, but we didn't know how much data we would have in a year or 2 or 3. And so with Snowflake, it was very easy for us to kind of make that decision of saying, let's just store all of our data in Snowflake and not have to try to separate out, what data do we put in our data warehouse and what data do we put in a data lake. And then on top of that, we have our multi-cluster compute. This really allows you to have a different workload or a different compute environment even for each workload that you might have. And so to put it in kind of Tableau terms and why you guys even care about this, you're probably loading data, especially if you're doing this on a real-time basis. You're loading lots of data into your data platform on a consistent basis. And you don't want that. You don't want to have to compete for resources against your data loading or against data science. So with Snowflake, you can actually set up different compute environments, different compute clusters for each thing. And Tableau can have its own individual compute cluster. So you're not having to compete with data loading, data science, data transformation, all the various things that you might have to do. Then on top of that, we deliver this as a service. We do all of the optimization for you, all of the security, it's all built in, all of the encryption. And you can see that we do have, we take security very important, encrypt your data, make sure that, it's going to pass the strict requirements of your security team. So I wanted to give an example of what this might look like, this kind of multi-cluster compute. This is what really differentiates Snowflake when you start to ask, like, why would I use Snowflake over, our current environment? What's the difference between this and, a different cloud-based data warehouse? So this really is what separates us, our ability to scale and allow for so much concurrency. And so like we said, initially, you might have this need to do, or you will have this need to load data into Snowflake or to your data platform. And with Snowflake, it's very easy to set these environments up, these compute clusters. It's really at a click of a button to set a new one up, and it's very easy to select which one is running. And so in this example, we have an extra small size. We size it using t-shirt sizes. And this is what's doing all of our data loading. And on top of that, you might have a separate one for all of our data transformation. And maybe that's a little bit larger, a small, which can still compute a lot of data very quickly. You might have a separate one that might power your financial reporting or your ERP systems. And then one specifically for the data scientists out there. And then the one that probably impacts most of you guys today is you probably would have a separate one specifically for Tableau. And again, you can see that these are all different sizes. One of the great things about Snowflake is that you can increase sizes, scale extremely quickly, just like in this scenario where with data science, they might have like a nightly run where they need to go process a large amount of data quickly. And you could instantly scale that up to an extra large. And then with your analytics, you might have many, many people getting on to access that. And you don't know how many people are going to access it throughout the day. So this was also important to me because I wanted to make sure that our Tableau users, which was the entire company, we gave basically everyone a license that wanted one for Tableau. We wanted everyone to be able to go access the data instantly. We wanted to see it in real time. And so we saw, waves, ebbs and flows throughout the day of who was using this. And it always seemed to be, it was like Wednesday at, 3 p.m. We would just get like 200 or 300 people logging onto Tableau and trying to access the reports. And so what Snowflake did is the way that we set it up is we allowed it to auto scale out. And what that meant is as more and more people got on, Snowflake in an intelligent manner scaled out horizontally to allow for more and more concurrency. And this all happened automatically. It was just a simple configuration up front. And then they all went home at 5 o'clock and then it scaled back down to allow for, the last few people who are using it. When you're done using compute in Snowflake, it shuts off and you're no longer being charged. So when you're thinking about costs for Snowflake, there's a very, very small increment or very small cost for storage. It's literally $23 per compressed terabyte per month, which is the same as S3. Then the rest is based on compute, how long your compute is on. When it's not on, you're not being charged. Snowflake allows also for very easy and secure sharing and collaboration. You can share your data without moving it by allowing other Snowflake accounts to see it. And then once you don't want them to see it, you can revoke that access. And then the last thing I'll talk about with some Snowflake specifics is the ease of creating test and dev environments. For me, I never wanted a business user to come to me and say, the data is wrong. And that's kind of, our worst nightmare as data people. We don't want our business users to come tell us that our data is wrong. And so we were able to create test and dev environments using a clone feature and push our, run tests before we actually push stuff to prod to ensure our data was accurate. And then the last thing that two last things I wanted to go over. Snowflake has a very strong integration with Tableau. Actually, about 2,000 of our Snowflake customers are using this native integration with Tableau. As you can see here, if you went into your Tableau desktop, you would see that there was a native integration, and it's very easy to connect and start bringing in your data instantly. And then lastly, I just wanted to give an example of where Snowflake might fit in your organization. And I know I'm running through this really quickly. I just want to make sure there's enough time for the last presentation. But what we see here is kind of how Snowflake could potentially fit in. And this is a very Salesforce and Tableau centric version of this. But I wanted to show you, how this might work, where using just kind of Tableau and Salesforce environment products, how you can get your data in and start using Snowflake. So you might have a lot of different data sources, different databases, MySQL, SQL Server, even Salesforce. With Tableau Prep, you can actually bring that data into Snowflake, writing to an external database. And each one of these symbols that you see here, this is kind of the Snowflake terminology of these compute clusters. We call them a warehouse in our product. But you can see that, using this multi-cluster compute, that we can be bringing in data, doing data transformation using Tableau Prep. We didn't talk about this, but Snowflake has an external marketplace where you could actually access data, different data sources like public health or COVID data to bring in and mix in with your Tableau reporting very easily without doing ETL work or moving data. And then you can hook Snowflake up directly to your data consumers, whether that's Tableau with your live reporting, MuleSoft for additional API integrations and things like that, or just like we saw with Rob's presentation, bringing that back into Salesforce and doing Einstein analytics or Tableau CRM analytics. And that's it. So I hope that you guys got something out of this today, that you could maybe start to understand what is Snowflake, why are people talking about us, and how we can hopefully improve your performance in Tableau and really give it a really strong, enjoyable experience for your business users. And so we would want to welcome you guys. If you're interested, go to the Snowflake website. You can start a free trial at any point in time. You could get a 30-day free trial with 400 free credits in Snowflake. Also, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email, and we'll be happy to talk to you guys too. All right, so let's check out see if there's any Q&A and
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. There are a lot of buzz going on Snowflake and Tableau implementations, and recently in the government data summit, like Tableau government summit, and we saw a presentation on Snowflake too. So great, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And let's see if there are any questions.
Great. Well, if you guys do have any questions, again, please reach out. Go on the Snowflake website, and we'll get you connected if any questions pop up.
Sounds good. Thank you, Blake, from Snowflake too. And I appreciate you having this presentation too. All right, so let's move on. We have our next presenter is also from Tableau, and you keep hearing about Tableau blueprint, right? And we get a lot of questions. Hey, how do we do Tableau blueprint? And we have somebody who is Tableau product manager and who has done, architect of Tableau blueprint. So please help me welcome Jeremy Blaney. Jeremy is helping organizations scale the use of data and analytics and foster the right behavior and beliefs that lead to the successful data culture. And Jeremy is leading data strategy for COVID-19 Data Hub, creating solutions in partnership with Salesforce, MuleSoft, and Tableau, and to help the public respond to COVID-19 through the use of data. And Jeremy is also a professor at Fletcher School at Tufts University and the University of Texas. And Jeremy served in US Air Force for 10 years, largely as intelligence analyst, completing assignments with NATO's elite force air command and deploying in support of operations enduring in Iraqi freedom. So he has great background, and he holds a bachelor's degree from Michigan State University and master's from Fletcher School at Tufts University. Please help me welcome Jeremy. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Blaney, and I have the great pleasure of leading Tableau Blueprint at Tableau. Yeah, like was just said, I've been at Tableau for about 3.5 years now, helping organizations across the globe become data-driven. I will say that work took on a whole new level of importance last year when I was plucked from my day job and asked to lead data strategy for our COVID-19 response in partnership with Salesforce and MuleSoft. Quick plug for Snowflake. Snowflake was absolutely a key part of our COVID-19 response. We used it as a data warehouse, both writing to from Tableau Prep and then reading from through the Hyper API to send it to different places all around the world so organizations can make use of it as a part of their COVID-19 response efforts. Yeah, I've been in this space for just a really long time. Prior to my time at Tableau, I was in HR analytics at Bank of America, where I used Tableau, Alteryx, DataRobot, sort of you name it, to help the company think through all sorts of stuff, recruiting challenges, diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges, and more beyond that. Prior to that, I was in the US military for a really long time where I flew on planes like this doing data analytics of a different sort while flying above the skies of different places around the world. Let's see. Today, I am going to introduce everybody to Tableau Blueprint. and talk to you a little bit about how you can engage with Blueprint. But before I do that, I want to start off with gratitude. I want to start off by saying thank you. The Tableau Blueprint fundamentally is a collection of best practices based on the expertise of thousands of people like you, our customers, who are figuring out this stuff for each of us every single day. Tableau Blueprint would not be possible without you. So keep acting, keep telling us what's working and what's not, so I can codify it in Blueprint. Let me just reiterate, thanks once again. So everybody knows this. At Tableau, we've been on a mission since day one to help people see and understand data. And that means now, that means more to us now than ever before, because data gives people a superpower. And when people tap into that power, they do incredible things, right? For example, data-driven organizations are able to, get a better picture of what's going on. They're able to make smarter decisions faster. They are able to help everyone be aligned and make decisions on data, not on opinions, not on intuition. Data-driven organizations deliver stronger results. I don't need to call it the stats on the slide, but you can read them clearly for yourself. Data-driven organizations deliver. And this is only getting more important, right? With digital transformation happening faster than ever as a result of just the natural evolution of things, but also as a result of, COVID-19 basically being a forcing function. But here's sort of the awful reality of it. Here's the not so funny punchline. The truth is that organizations are falling short. A recent survey by McKinsey showed that less than 10% of organizations are achieving this idea of analytics at scale. Sure, the surveyed organizations were seeing, data-driven wins here and there in a single department like HR, for example, but 92% were failing to, scale those wins and the capabilities that underpin them from that single department to another department or the organization as a whole. So this begs the question, what do the 8% know that the rest do not? The answer, it really comes down to this: data culture. Data culture is the collective behaviors and beliefs of people who value, practice, and encourage the use of data to improve decision-making. And in a data culture, everybody in an organization has the ability to, work with the data they need. People can unlock insights from anywhere to make faster and smarter decisions as a result. Organizations with a strong data culture are adaptable, they're resilient, and they are successful even in the face of, the incredible pace of change that's happening right now, managing everything from, as I stated before, digital transformations that are happening in a way like never before, to all of the social upheaval that's happening in the world. Over the last 15 years or so, those of us at Tableau have worked with really organizations of every size in every industry and across the globe. And through it all, we've learned what works and what doesn't in building a data culture. It starts with a technology platform that lowers barriers for new users and brings power to advanced users. And we heard today about some incredible innovations that have been recently introduced to the Tableau platform through the 2021.1 release. Becoming a data-driven organization also involves people, getting them excited about data to drive a change in behaviors. This is where a passionate community to the far right side of this equation can make a huge difference. Finally, you need a proven methodology that connects the two. A proven methodology that guides your data journey, whether you're a server administrator, a community leader, external to your organization or internal to your organization, or if you're an executive who's driving business outcomes through the use of data. Tableau Blueprint is that methodology guiding you on your journey to becoming a data-driven organization. So whether you're new to modern self-service analytics, or you're already deployed but need to broaden, deepen, and scale the use of data, Tableau Blueprint provides the prescriptive, the documented guidance to help you develop core capabilities and ultimately build a thriving data culture. And if I was to net it out even further, it would be to become a data-driven organization and achieve all of those wonderful, stats, all of those wonderful gains that I highlighted on slide number 1. Your journey in Tableau Blueprint begins right here by thinking through, the business goals and the objectives your organization is pursuing, and asking the very simple question of how can data be used to drive forward those business outcomes? If we don't start there, and unfortunately many people don't, but if we don't start there, then first of all, what is the point of all of this? And second of all, you're going to be on shaky ground as you move to the right of the blueprint, which we'll walk through in just a couple of minutes. The second step within the Tableau Blueprint is where we, identify stakeholders, those who are ultimately going to be involved in this effort to deploy Tableau initially and then to scale the platform going forward. This includes everybody from executive sponsors to IT administrators generally, to data architects, and even a couple of data consumers, to ensure that their point of view is represented in developing the plan that's going to unfold. These individuals definitely play a critical role, not just, again, in that initial deployment of your analytics environment, but also as your organization scales and the use of data and analytics begins to foster the right behaviors and beliefs that lead to a successful data culture. From there, Blueprint branches out into a couple of different lanes. We've got an agility, proficiency, and a community lane, and we'll walk through each in turn. These are the capabilities that are common to all data-driven organizations. These capabilities, as you can see, are underpinned, or rather overpinned. I'm referring to the bar at the top here. These capabilities are underpinned by a deliberate and ongoing conversation about governance. So the agility track provides guidance on how to deploy a secure, stable environment that evolves as business needs change. And boy, oh boy, are business needs changing as a result of the incredible pace of change that we're all experiencing right now, as a result of running through digital transformation faster, and so on and so forth. As a result of pivoting to work from home, sort of insert cataclysmic event here, right? Things are just changing pretty dramatically. The first step within the agility track is to install and configure the software, which, for those of you who are server admins will agree sometimes sounds easier than it actually is. The Tableau Blueprint provides prescriptive guidance on the best way to build, to right size, and secure your environment. Now, we all know that deployment gets you started, and that's wonderful, right? What's the point of buying something if you're never going to take it off the shelf and use it? But after you've launched, what then? It can't stop there. To build agility into your environment, into your tech stack, monitoring is key. Tableau Server and Tableau Online, though, Tableau Online to a lesser extent must be monitored, including hardware and application metrics, in order to have, the information that you need, so that way you can fine tune your environment as changes pop up. From there, we have maintenance, which guides you on how to do things like load testing, capacity planning, and upgrades. We all know that as a result of just the world becoming more interconnected and digital transformations happening faster than ever before, we should play a game. Every time I say digital transformation or becoming a data-driven organization, we put a tally in the chat or something like that. But let me say this. So organizations, they're generating just an unfathomable amount of data with each passing day. And as a result, need a tech stack that is agile, that can continue to grow with the needs of the business. The second capability, the second, subway line, as we like to call them, the second capability is proficiency. And this is relatively simple, right? At the end of the day, for an organization to not only be successful with data, but to quickly make use of that data, users need to know how to use data, right? That sounds kind of very basic, and it is, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. When we enable this, when we build proficiency amongst the user base, really special things happen. And where we begin is by building out a solid education plan for users. Now, we all know that education plans cannot be one size fits all, right? There's two things to consider here. The first is that the degree to which somebody needs to be data literate is going to vary based on their specific job roles and how they are expected to use data. Individuals who are business analysts may need to go through a robust formal training because they're going to be deep in the weeds, leveraging the Tableau platform every single day to unlock, analyze, and act on data. Those who are leveraging some of what was shown previous today, predictions, right there in Tableau, Tableau Desktop, are going to need a different set of trainings because those models need to be built, by Salesforce folks. So the point I'm trying to make is this: is education plans cannot be one size fits all. You need to think about what type of education is needed for each role. And then even after that, we know that people have different learning preferences, right? And boy, does Tableau do a great job of just presenting many different options out into the ecosystem. I don't know where you all began your Tableau journey, but where I began my Tableau journey about 6 or 7 years ago now, was on tableau.com with the free training videos that are out there. I installed Tableau onto my machine. I connected to, I get sort of goosebumps thinking about, my first time using Tableau. I installed it on my machine. I connected to an Excel file that had some HR data in it. I started double clicking on, city postal code and different things, and voila, I had a little bit of a viz like right there in front of me. It was pretty ugly, right? It did not have sort of the finesse that we see that comes out of Makeover Monday, but I mean, it was a viz nonetheless. But as I, tried to go forward, there was a lot I didn't know. And so what did I do? I turned to the free training videos. But at a certain point, I needed a little bit more. And so I turned to other modes of instruction, like e-learning, like classroom-based training, and so on and so forth. The point I'm trying to make is this: is, we all know that people have different learning preferences, and whatever the form is, doesn't really matter as we talk about it in education. We just need a deliberate and a dedicated focus on education, because that is very much an essential part of success. After that, we have measurement. Measurement is something that's really often overlooked, but is just so important. How many users are adopting and engaging with the tech stack and Tableau server in particular? What data are they using? How are they using it? What value have they created from analyses that they've completed? All these data points help organizations optimize Tableau, optimize the data, and optimize the content to make sure that it's meeting the needs of the business. And then last but not least on this track, we have analytics best practices. As analytics becomes, mainstream in every organization, it's important that best practices be set up to, help guide users and how they should be using data. This could include stuff like templates, color palettes, or other elements of dashboard design to, specific guidelines on, calculations or how to interact with the environment. When, operating analytics at just a massive scale, these best practices help to establish really clear guidelines for the organization to follow, which enables everybody to accelerate speed to insights. And then the final capability, community. This is really the critical differentiator between organizations who are successful and organizations that are not. In other words, sort of like I said previously, it's kind of like the secret sauce, right? And community begins with communication. So a strong intranet maybe, or other communication tools that establish that connection within the community. This could be a Slack channel or another message form that gives people the ability to really just interact with one another in real time, asking and answering questions. So that way, they can be inspired by their peers or speed up delivery on whatever analysis it is that they're working on. Then, we can think about engaging with end users, pulling them together in the spirit of, cross-functional learning and collaboration, kind of like what we're doing right now, all in an effort to get people excited about, data and the superpowers that it contains within. I'm talking about stuff like external user groups as well as internal user groups, right? Tableau days or analytics summit, community-led visualization projects like Makeover Monday. All of that fun stuff has a lot of power, especially when brought into your organizations very deliberately. We've seen that these types of organizations have a tremendous impact on driving excitement and ultimately changing behavior around data. And then finally, we have support, right? You need to establish strong support environments that allow the organization to keep the environment humming along and get blockers out of the way as soon as possible. So that way, people can quickly get back into the flow of analysis. Underpinning all of these capabilities, as I mentioned previously, is a deliberate and ongoing conversation around governance. Governance, simply put, is the combination of controls, roles, and repeatable processes that create trust and confidence in data and analytics within an organization. So think of this as the safety mechanisms that are preventing, the train from coming off the tracks, especially as analytics, scales from one business unit to the next or the organization as a whole. It's important to note that, governance is not something that's like, one and done. It needs to be revisited often. Like I said, tally it up, right? The pace of change, it's accelerating, which means that business needs change, as do data needs and content needs in your with regards to your environment, as well as the users who are accessing that environment. So a good governance model evolves with those changes, so that way organizations can continue to successfully drive adoption of the platform and safely use data. So there you have it. In the interest of time, I kind of buzzed through this, but that is the Tableau blueprint and methodology. Again, for scaling the use of data and analytics in your organization and fostering the right behaviors and beliefs that lead to a successful data culture. During our short time together, I've just begun to, scratch the surface, but don't worry, all 250 pages are posted to tableau.com. It absolutely warm my heart to see each and every one of you, commit to basically reading each of those pages in the next, 48 hours or so. I think is pretty reasonable. Listen, I'm joking, obviously. It's a little weird to sort of tell these jokes in a virtual environment because I'm like, I can't see if anybody's laughing. So I'm going to assume that you're all laughing. But listen, I'm a realist. I know that's not going to happen. Everybody's going to need more time to read every single one of those pages than that. So here's another idea. For those of you who are managing internal user communities and who are participating in the effort to drive data culture within your organizations. For those of you who are IT administrators, Tableau administrators, or maybe even data stewards, I want all of you to go to tableau.com/blueprint-assessment and complete the blueprint assessment. This short assessment helps you navigate the journey to transform into a data-driven organization by doing a couple of things. First, it measures where you are And second, it provides personalized, actionable recommendations on where to go from here. The Tableau Blueprint Assessment, it has two parts to it. The first part is related to its namesake, right? It's related to Tableau Blueprint. It evaluates your adoption of processes and best practices across agility, proficiency, community, and governance on an effort to help you broaden, deepen, scale the use of data in your organization. The second area is related to data culture itself, asking executives to assess how they're empowering everyone to unlock and create business value through a data culture. Regardless of your track, the assessment really shouldn't take anything more than 10 or 15 minutes to complete, again, enabling you to measure where you are in your journey today, so that way you can better appreciate where you need to go. The outputs, as I mentioned previously, it's a list of actionable recommendations, including, self-service guidance that is broken out in a very step-by-step way. Finally, it's personalized. So if you are a server admin, you'll get server admin questions. If you're a data steward, you're going to get some governance heavy questions. If you're driving analytics proficiency because you're on a learning and development team, or maybe that's an additional duty for you in your slice of the organization, you're going to get questions on how you're driving analytics proficiency within that slice of the organization. And finally, if you're driving data culture at the most meta level as a senior leader, then you're going to get very strategic questions, as well as some pretty great guidance on the back end, as well as use cases of customers who have really done a great job doing this. Organizations like Red Hat, the World Food Program, JLL, and many, many others. So there you have it. My ask, again, go out to tableau.com/blueprint-assessment, complete the assessment, and that's what I have for you today. Let me pause, take a breath, see if we got any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. I think let's just please put your questions in the chat. That was a great presentation, and it's like a blueprint guide for us, and we follow really diligently on all the steps to create the data-driven culture and data-driven organizations. Really a structured approach.
All right, we got nothing. No questions. It's all good. It's Friday. Thanks all for your time today. I really do appreciate it. And complete the blueprint assessment. Tableau.com/blueprint-assessment.
Yep.
That's all for me. Back over to you, Srini.
Awesome. Thank you very much. In fact, I would like to thank all the presenters and taking time out of your schedule to do these presentations for our Rocky Mountain Tableau user group. And it's been going pretty good. We have been doing this is, I think, 7th year or 6th year in running, and we do use cases, both public and private use cases. And I see so many different organizations using locally. We have usually more than 100 organizations register, and it's been an amazing journey. And we are very excited about new partnerships like Snowflake, and what's happening with Einstein Analytics and the blueprint. And we have Tableau Government Summit, and recently we attended Public Safety Summit, and CDOT, and all the private sector use cases that we see, and really appreciate. And if you sometimes I just want to put it out, and we do have requests looking for analysts, data analysts, looking for data analyst positions open. So if anybody is looking for, please ping and I'll direct to the right organization. But like I said, this is a challenging time of the world, and hopefully you stay safe, and we can look forward to in-person data summits. And this is last year we couldn't do anything in person. This year also first we are doing virtual data summits, and we miss all that human touch, and hopefully we can get to in-person data summits pretty soon. And also always good to have the virtual summits anyway. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, and have a great weekend. I will see you pretty soon. Thank you.